On that note,
we're live.
hello, everybody. I've got to pull up. I've got to get ready. We start chatting, and I'm not ready, but I'll be ready in like 15 seconds.
Well, we can talk all day, Scott, about
even
the pursuit of happiness.
All right, so honey, what is going on? I saw you were on live this morning. I caught about a minute and a half of it. Anything new with you?
Yeah, so I've been, well, first of all, just personally, my son's turning 3 tonight, my baby. So very excited. We're having a party. It's going to be a lot of fun. And professionally, I have been really digging into conversations with owners and directors and what they're dealing with right now and kind of what's going on. And I mean, we started chatting about last week about resiliency. But I think I want to talk today a little bit about where the emotional breakdown starts and how the owner can start and director can start working in a proactive way before there's overwhelm, underperformance, just emotional craziness.
Honey, I got a question for you as you get into that. For me, I'd like to know where you think the emotional breakdown starts and where deploying resilience starts. Does the emotional breakdown happen as things kind of start to topple in your life? Does the emotional breakdown start well before that? And what is so what are the coping mechanisms and what is resilience? Like how do you avoid that emotional breakdown if that's your inflection point?
Yeah, so I think the first thing, first of all, great question. I think the first thing to understand is we all start in a different place depending on our psychology, our upbringing, our childhood, trauma that we've been through. Have we worked through the trauma? What does our current life look like? Are we married? Are we in a good relationship? Do we have kids? All of these things play a massive factor in our emotional capacity. So that's the first thing. Where I think the big part of the emotional breakdown start with staff. Okay, so again, I'm not a psychotherapist or a psychologist or someone who studies this consistently. I study this with teachers, period. So if you're watching this and you're like, no, that's not true for other people, you're right. It's probably not true for other people. I do know this is true for teachers. And that is the emotional breakdown starts with a false narrative of expectation of what the day is supposed to look like. So I'm going to say that again. For teachers, the emotional breakdown begins in this false narrative and expectation of what the day is supposed to look like. Every single teacher has a narrative, has a script in her hand of what the day should look like. So if I have 12 toddlers and I have 2 teachers in the classroom, here's how the day should be. First we do this, then we do this, then we go out and we do circle time, then we come back and we have snack time. And, and they have this narrative of what the day should look like. At no point in the narrative does it say, oh, owner, come in and tell me lunch break 40 minutes later today, I need you to cover in this classroom. That is at no point in their narrative. At no point in their narrative does it say, receive email from parent complaining about child who came home with dirty diaper. That's not in their narrative. None of that exists. Their narrative is a perfectly orchestrated day with every human being who's supposed to be in their classroom there, with every resource ready for them there, and everyone ready to help them at any given moment. That is their narrative.
So you're talking about emotional states, and I think meltdown is such a great concept. I've always said that you can work an entire career, you can work 30 years to earn credibility, to earn a reputation, to earn respect. And in 30 seconds, that can be gone because you can't control your emotional state. Or and I'm often, I think I lean too heavy into the paradigm that we're all completely in control of our emotional states. And I think we are. But I think it is a muscle, right? I think it's a skill set to have control of your emotional state and avoid the meltdown. First of all, you can change your focus in a moment. You know, you and I can be having the craziest argument, and we can both call time out and say we've got to shift attentional in our attention and focus to climbing the positivity mountain. Like let's stop going downhill. We're stopping right now, and we're going to start climbing positive. You know, what can we do here? A lot of times that's a recognition and an appreciation. You know, honey, you said it before, being in a great marriage, and having a person that that understands your emotional state and can help you call that time out when things are downhill. And like you said, when break gets pushed by 40 minutes, that recognition, that person that's self-aware enough to do that is critical. But changing your thoughts, any devices that you use in the day-to-day to assure that you avoid that career-ending meltdown, that credibility-killing moment.
Sure. So there's so many things, and I want to explain it from the teacher perspective, from the director's perspective, and from, you know, the owner, the entrepreneur's perspective, because each of them have a very different approach to how we do this, right? So with a teacher, I think one of the things that are very powerful is to guide them through acting your way to new thinking. This concept that we think we have to think and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it. Yes, it's important to talk about it. Yes, it's important to have conversation. And then sometimes it's just, you know what, for the next 30 minutes, how do you want to show up? Who is your best you, Miss Amy? Who's the best Miss Amy that you know lives deep down inside of you for the next 30 minutes from 12 to 12:30 until your lunch break? That's who I want to show up in that classroom. Can you do that? Yes? Great. I'll see you at 12:30. Here's what's important to remember. There is so much data and science backed by why moving your body changes your mind, right? Why exercise is critical, that why it decreases depression and it improves your mood. And it does a million things. You just Google right now, why is exercise good for you, right? You'll have 30 different reasons, because moving your body changes your physiology and the neurons in your brain. Well, acting your way to new thinking does a very similar concept. And sometimes directors are banging their heads against the wall with like, oh my God, I just need this teacher to grow up. And it's like, okay, just tell her, hey, for the next 30 minutes, I want you to act like you're 30. And how a 30-year-old grown-up acts, this is how they act. Can you do that for the next 30 minutes? Acting your way to new thinking is so underrated as such a powerful way to tell your brain, oh, I know how to do this. This is how we show up in these moments. So that's one thing. Another thing is the positive power of negative preparation. The positive power of negative preparation. When you sit down with your teachers or your directors, if you're an owner, and you look at their perfectly scripted day that they wrote down in their notebook or whatever it is, and you tell them, okay, I'm going to put in this notebook right now 5 curveballs. Here they are. And you put down 5 curveballs. And then you say, okay, now let's role play through them. So it's 11 o'clock. You're feeding snacks to 24 3-year-olds. And I come in and I tell you this. How do you want to show up? And you literally have them act their way through it. Here's what I know. It's a muscle. So just like when you pick up the 5-pounders the first time, it hurts. When you keep on picking up those 5-pounders, you could do it easily. If you keep on role playing and giving your staff reps, when you throw the gut punch, they show up in the way that they did in their acting sessions. Okay?
Yeah, agreed. I have something to add to this. I think there's so much that's behavioral here, and I think we owe it to ourselves to when you talk about the scenario modeling with the 5 curveballs. I think I try to mimic people that I respect, people that I see that act as in a way that I feel is personified leadership in times of crisis. We were just talking about it earlier. We founded businesses, right? And we need that creative time. We need that time to go away and think and kind of pattern that business that we've built and that business that we're trying to build. Those two worlds, and all of that is. You're using those mental reps. You're outlining the roadmap. You're road mapping your future. These are the 12 things I need to do. I think you need to do the same things with your list of 5 curveballs. And on top of that, I think it's a great mental exercise to think of that one person that you respect, and you really have the highest admiration for how they handle things. It can be Winston Churchill, it can be whoever, whatever political figure, whatever tech company leader, but put yourselves in their shoes and scenario model out the 5 curveballs that you have written down and do those mental reps. One thing, my dad was a very calm guy, and he could watch somebody. I'll use myself as an example. He could ask me not to do something, and then I would do what he asked me not to do, break a window, completely F up. And I can still see him take a deep breath and try to talk me through why he wants to rip my head off, but why he is calmly and lovingly discussing why I shouldn't do that next time. I get those mental reps with Daryl Wayman, my dad, often. People I've worked with in the past. I do these mental reps often with, there's our CTO, Bob Willer. I often ask myself, okay, with this particular rep or this particular situation, how would Bob handle this? I'm just a huge fan of running through those mental reps with the 5 curveballs, with those constants in life, those loving moments you have to have with your family, your spouse, your parents, and I think those reps give you resilience. I think that's the foundational part of resilience. But in the end, you're practicing very, very succinct self-awareness.
The other piece is to really understand how to become an observer of your own behavior. So it's a delicate dance of watching yourself in the arena, dancing, getting punched around, whatever you want to use, and standing in the balcony seats and watching yourself, and then also making sure that you're in the arena actually doing work. So you need to be able to, in a moment, be able to say, 1 second, like, this isn't going the way that I want it to. I can still choose how I want to respond. What do I want to say? And giving yourself permission to pause in those moments. I think the other piece is, it's the way that you do that is by taking your brain to the gym. You need to flex, your brain needs to have exercises. It needs to move and be malleable. And one of the most powerful ways of doing that is through meditation. And I think it is so underrated about how important it is to actually take your brain to the gym every single day. Just like you take your body to the gym, or you take it for a run, or you put it in the swimming pool, whatever it is, you need to take your brain to the gym. And you're not a monk. You don't need to meditate for 4 hours. Do 10 minutes, but do it consistently, because what you're doing is, it trains your mind that when it gets distracted and when it moves somewhere else, you know how to bring it back. When your mind starts, you know how to bring it back. So it creates discipline and focus inside of yourself, which are skills that are a lost art at this point. And in our field, it's critical. These are critical skills.
One of the things I've seen doing 2 startups over the last decade, it's been a long 10 years. I've aged quite a bit. But what startups do better than the sleepy incumbents in a market or in a vertical, what they do better is they change their responses faster than anybody else. I think of this as I think of this in context to being a resilient person, being a person that's evolving. That ability to change your thoughts in a moment and change your response, and that the age-old question of how's that working for you, being able to respond to that and change and iterate, it's so super important. I think the study of how startups win a marketplace in some way, shape, or form can be a kind of a linear line, can be drawn to emotional states and successful people. There's this code of nimbleness within somebody that lives a fruitful life, that has contentment, that has joy. They have that. It seems like the Tony Robbins of the world, the Chanie Wilschanskis of the world, they have that superpower, that muscle to change their responses.
I want to just bring in a caveat to what you said here is many times our staff and then people with a fixed mindset also, because there's a lot of directors and owners that have a fixed mindset around, well, that's just a natural talent or that's a superpower of theirs or whatever it is. You get to create your superpower. You get to decide what the superpower is. Being intentional and being someone who is committed to choosing their responses is not something that I was born with. It is not the way I was raised. It is not the way, not like nothing. Like this is not anything that just came with, you know, the packaging of me. It was an intentional practice. You know, I did this. There's a game on Facebook you can play, which is, what does your bitchy cup say about you? And mine is, you couldn't handle me even if I came with instructions. And there's so much truth to that because, well, one, I don't think anyone can handle me even if I came with an instruction book. But I think the other piece is nobody comes with an instruction manual. Your kids don't, your husband doesn't, your teachers don't. No one comes with an instruction manual. You need to learn the skill of how am I going to have a relationship with this person? And having a relationship with this person looks very different than having a relationship with someone else, right? Our relationship looks very different than the relationship I have with my clients, than the relationship that I have with my husband. Because you're a different person, because the context of our relationship is very different. And so this concept of like, I just need to be my authentic self, or I just want to show up as me. Who are you, right? When you show up with your wife at dinner, I really hope you show up differently there than you do on a Facebook live stream with me, right? It's your wife. You're going out for dinner together. You're going to be a different person, and you should be. She deserves a different side of Scott, right? I don't want to see the side of Scott that shows up at a romantic dinner here. We're not doing a romantic dinner. We're doing a Facebook live streaming of content, talking to an ideal, talking to owners and directors right now. So I think removing from yourself this concept of like, but I need to be me. Who are you, right? Show up to your staff the way that they need you to show up in that moment. Do you need the brave side of yourself? Do you need the courageous side of yourself? Do you need the bold side of yourself? Who needs to show up in that moment, right? Right now, when I show up on live streamings, I bring a decisive, articulate, and bold side of myself. I want to be articulate. I want people to understand me. I want to bring a bold side of myself. I want to be bold and unafraid about what I'm sharing and what my thoughts and opinions are. I don't talk like this at a 3-year-old kid's birthday party that I'm going to have tonight. This is not the setting that shows up. What'd you say?
That would be really, you would be no fun. This Chanie at a 3-year-old party Sorry, bud. Sorry, I don't want to say it.
Right? The person who shows up at the 3-year-old birthday party is someone who's wearing barely any makeup, right? Who has a book in her hand, who has a plushie in the other, who's probably got a pack of diapers behind her also, sitting on the floor, has sticky stains on her dress, and is so happy that she's doing that, right? And I have all the kids on the block in my arms, right? Like, the more the merrier. That's the side that I want to show up in that moment, because that's also me.
That's right. That's authentic. But I have so I think there's some good news here. So one of my favorite books is by Malcolm Gladwell. It's called the David and Goliath book, the story of the underdog. It's so great, and I think many people listening to us might be saying, well, emotional intelligence, resilience, it's just not my jam. The beauty of that book is it takes these different archetypical stories of overcoming, and it takes these 7-8 different stories of underdogs, and it tries to explain their success. And in each and every story in that book, I'll give an example. So the physician that came up with one of the treatments for leukemia, had the most terrible childhood. Like, as I was reading it, I was crying. Child abuse, mother in and out of relationships where she was beaten, but in all that, gained this ridiculous amount of fortitude and toughness, and not to say that child or that man, the man that he became, didn't have a lot to unwind, and there wasn't a lot there. But his story of studying hard and being resilient and being in a situation where in every moment he was against all the odds, and that resilience he turned into a strength. And I think there are many of us that have a lot of baggage, and we think we're damaged, and we think it's impossible for us to and that we plateaued. And the greatest stories of success and accomplishment and achievement and breakthrough are from those that have been in these tumultuous situations, and the only way out was to fight their way through, right? So the good news here is, as you approach your emotional intelligence panel or your body of work, and you look back and think, well, this is where my career went to shit, or this is why I didn't fulfill myself in this relationship. The good news is, with the right amount of work, you can turn those things into superpowers. You can really learn from those experiences, and that's the beauty of the human element. We have the capacity to completely change.
Yeah, and I think I love what you said here just about story, because we have the capacity to do anything. The challenge is, many times we're setting the wrong goals and mile markers. And I think something that's really important as we go into 2021 is to look at goal setting from a very different angle. I think outcome-based goals are important. I think, and I'm talking to a software guy, I think it's important to set metrics. I think it's important to track things. If you're struggling with enrollment and marketing, you need to be tracking how many phone calls are you getting on, where's your deal flow coming from, are you having a steady stream of clients? I think those are all table stakes. Like, this is business 101. Here's how to fill your center, okay? What I'm about to say here is for people who understand the table stakes of running a center. You understand you need to have a marketing engine. You understand you need to have a hiring and onboarding system and process, or whatever it is, okay? What I'm talking about here is being intentional about the skills that you want to develop as you move into this new year, okay? So I'm going to share a personal story, and then I want to share a practical piece, because also as we come into Thanksgiving and the holiday season, We are launching a podcast. It was pushed off a little bit more now because of just internal work and projects that we have to shift around. So we're probably pushing it off to the beginning of January. It's supposed to be at the end of this month. But we're launching a podcast. Now, that's a goal that I have. There's a lot of outcome goals based on the podcast. How many new subscribers do we want? How many listeners? Where we want it rated? Who do we want to be our sponsors? All the outcome goal metrics, right? All important. But then there's an important skill that comes with any goal that you set. The skill that I want to develop as I open and launch this podcast is the skill of storytelling. I want to learn how to become a phenomenal storyteller. Now, I already am a great storyteller. I love to tell stories. I know how to engage an audience. But what if I also honed in on that and really developed the craft of storytelling? What would my podcast look like? I don't know. That's what's so exciting about it. If you have a sales and marketing funnel in place, right? What if you learned the art of telling stories on a tour? What would your tours look like? What would your conversions look like? I don't know. That's what's exciting. When there is no actual outcome goal associated to it, it's the process and the enjoyment of becoming better at something. That's where joy lives, right? Like, I am excited about becoming a better storyteller, and how that's going to enhance my marriage, my parenting, my business. I don't know, but I know it's going to affect all the parts of my life that I care deeply about. Now, when you were talking about the story about the hero's journey, right, where they started and kind of, to use Joseph Campbell's analogy of hero's journey, when we know people's stories, you develop a completely different level of empathy with that person, period. When you and I sat down and had dinner together with 6 other people, and then after dinner we were just hanging out on the side, and you were telling me more of your story, your upbringing, your parents, just foster siblings that you had, and I was like, oh my God, I know you now in a completely different way. I have a completely different respect for who you are. I have a completely different inspiration for your journey and your story and where you are right now, right? There's just a different connection and relationship that happens, right? That's why I miss dinner parties, because that's where story unfolds itself. The greatest gift you could give your staff is the gift of story. Have your staff be able to tell each other their stories. That's where empathy, connection, relationship, all of the things that you want your staff to have with each other, it doesn't happen in a hermetically sealed box. It happens through story. Have people tell each other stories. And so we're doing a goal planning workshop in schools of excellence on how to really decide what are the skills, what are the big, what are these goals that I want to have for 2021 about the leader that I want to be. So I'm really excited about this goal planning workshop that we have coming up in beginning of December.
Honey, the concept of storytelling, I heard, this is not mine, but I heard a few years back, there was a startup that was doing for early education, they were doing these storybooks and they were personalized. And in the way that the founder talked about the importance of storytelling, it was amazing. She said, a great storyteller helps connect the left brain to the right brain. And that concept of storytelling as a leader is not only how you have influence, and I think we all double down and this person's a great storyteller and they did great things, they were a great leader, but it's also how we teach and inspire. It's also how we connect. It's also how we take our journey and we help expedite somebody else's. If I have a salesperson that's struggling today in their career, it's incumbent on me to connect the left brain to the right brain and share elements of my journey as a salesperson or as a storyteller. I love that. I'm really excited about your your focus, doubling down on storytelling. It's stories
really
they convey everything. They convey our culture, our history. They convey our values. Yes, my story was not, it was accidental. I did not mean to sit down and tell you I was one of 100 kids in an adopted family.
Right. But we were just talking and the story came out. I want to say a piece here, which I think is so fascinating. And for those of you that want to listen to the full podcast, I think it's a great podcast. Tim Ferriss interviewed Lord Jonathan Sacks, who just recently passed away. He was knighted by the Queen of England as sitting in the House of Lords, and brilliant human being. And one of the things that he was telling Tim around just where cultures are created and how they continue itself is in the art of storytelling. So just traditionally, Passover, the whole holiday of Passover is all about storytelling. It's about the parents telling the children the story of Passover. And so every single year there is a holiday dedicated to telling the stories of the previous generation. And that's how we continue the culture, right? So culturally in our circle, that's what it looks like. If you have a tradition in your school where you consistently tell stories of kids, of parents, of teachers, that is part of your culture. That is what makes you. That is what creates this unbreakable bond between people, because you're connected by the fabric of those stories. And there's just a fascinating interview, just, all the things that he asked him about America and about just it's a fascinating interview around culture and morality. So if you're interested, you could definitely check that out. But I'm excited about what we're doing. And if anyone's interested in joining us for our goal planning workshop, I can let you know where to sign up and join us. It's going to be an exercise that's going to stretch your mind and flex your brain.
I love it. Yes, storytelling is definitely is a mode. We're always telling the story. Yeah, I think about the most inspiring moments I've had in my work life, and they all go back to a hero's journey, a really interesting narrative, a service to people, and every center I've ever been in has those building blocks. They have those accessible components of telling the story. I'm the founder. This is why I opened the center. This is why I hired you as my director. I love talented people. This is why I hired you as teachers. But I can't wait to see you hone that storytelling concept with our owners and directors. That's awesome.
Well, we're already at the top of the hour here. It always goes by so fast. So I just want to thank you for having me. And if anyone is interested in taking this further, please join us for our workshop. You could go to chanie.me/2021 planning. We'll put that in the comments, chanie.me/2021 planning. It's going to be a completely different type of goal planning. This is not, if you're looking to plan about your marketing goals or stuff like that, that's something completely different. This is for people that want to develop their skills and who they want to become as leaders. It's a completely different style workshop.
That's amazing. Awesome. Well, Chanie, thanks as always. I look forward to our next one. We love you and have a great time this week. I know you have some big things coming up. Everybody out there, this is a time to give thanks and gratitude. My gratitude this morning was again, my wife. She's like, "Shut up! I know you're grateful for me." But I'm just so grateful to work with you, the wonderful people that we have assembled at Kangaroo Time, and the best business owners in the world, the people that are relentlessly building bodies, minds, and souls, and making all kinds of sacrifices for people. So with that gratitude, I will sign off. Chanie, we love you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me, and thanks for this friendship. I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. See you guys. Thanks, everybody. Bye.